morning, everybody. I forgot my little bell this time. I was telling Mark that really works like a charm. But this worked pretty well too. So welcome to our meeting called Growler Jet Noise Restoring the Balance. This is the second time we've had a meeting about the growlers. If some of you remember, we had one, at least shaking his head, he knows, in 2015. So this problem is still going on. And more people know about it, and the opposition has really expanded now to this big coalition, Sound Defense Alliance. So I'll be introducing the speakers in a little while. First, I want to tell you a few things. Barbara Cooper made the coffee, help yourself. And Rita Sullivan made the cookies. She always makes cookies. And her grandson, Zane Butler, is videotaping the meeting. He's doing that every time now that he can come. He's a budding videographer. He's really getting around town. He has business cards on the back table if you might be interested. And he'll provide a link to the meeting that I will send out to you tomorrow with the newsletter. There's hard copies of the newsletter on the sign-in table for those who don't have email or who prefer a hard copy, so help yourself. And be sure you signed in, then I can put you on the email list. Unless you don't want to be on, then let me know. Otherwise, if you go on the list, that makes you a member. If we don't have any dues, you just come and sign in and then you're a member. We're an independent club and we elected not to have dues. Instead, we just pass the hat. John Jansen is here too. Are you?
We can hear the noise right
Oh, okay.
Yes, they must know about the meeting and they're showing us what they can do, what they want to.
Yes. Are there any public officials here? I'll introduce you. I don't think so. No, okay. There is Tony Cabana here who wants to say a few words about the census that will be coming up in 2020. Tony, there he is.
I want to go the other way around.
I can step over.
Yeah, step over.
Can I move this? Hello. This will be very brief, and I want to thank you for allowing me to come and mention a few things. The census is coming. And my job is as a recruiter. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to recruit people to participate in the census. You can work from home. It's flex time. It's a part-time job, and it pays over $18 an hour. Okay, so if you know anybody who's looking for work, please give them my email address, which I'll leave in the back there. This is a very important thing. In case you don't know, I mean, this is how the money is spent, based on how many people live in the community. I live on Fidalgo Island. I consider that the community, not Anacortes, but the whole island. And so 2020 is April next year, and we have to count every head, because that tells us how much money we'll get. If we leave one person uncounted, that represents like $3,000 a year. 10 years, $30,000. Family of 5, $150,000. This money goes to your roads, to your schools, to your lots and lots of things. $670 billion. So I'll just leave this out in the back there. If you know anybody who would like to make some extra money, please have them pick up one of these. Take it apart, take something out of it, or just take my card and have them send me an email. There's only 3 requirements. You have to be over 18, you have to be a U.S. citizen, and you have to have an email address. That's it. Okay? You don't have to have a computer. You can come here and use their computer. You just need an email address. All right? We need 7,000 people in Skagit. Okay? Thank you.
May I ask something to that? You can pick up that microphone.
Okay. I was at a fundraiser for Bob Ferguson yesterday, and one of the things he said was that they had this particular win about the census in the Roberts Supreme Court. And what the Constitution says is that every person, like this gentleman said, has to be counted. Not U.S. citizens have to be counted, but every person has to be counted. That is in our U.S. Constitution. So the Roberts Supreme Court actually supported that against the Trump administration. So it's really, really important. This was a big win for everyone. So if you have time, please do help.
There's no questions of citizenship on the census.
Absolutely.
Because of the Supreme Court in July.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Mary. I want to point out that
$675 billion.
this clock up here is an hour fast. The correct clock is back there. I wanted to say a little about the election. It's not over yet, but, and also maybe you want to say something, right? Okay. Was November 5th, you know. There are 800 more ballots left to count in Skagit County, and the turnout was 35.44% for our county. Not very good, is it? The average is 42.8%. There were, what, 4 counties I counted that were above 50%. The highest was 63% turnout. Forget which one, Lincoln, I think. So that's some of the bad news. Oh, there's more bad news. Initiative 976 is passing 53% to 47%. And referendum 88, narrowly passing. It still could fail. The good news is Liz Lovelet won in a huge landslide, 70%. Daniel Miller got 29.8% overall in the district, but he did better in Skagit, much better in Skagit than in the district as a whole. He got 42% in Skagit County. So that's some news there. Okay, then I want to introduce Megan Lancy. Just came in and wants to say a few words about the new Elizabeth Warren group. Watch out for wires.
Watch it. Hi guys, I don't really need this, I don't think. Hi, I'm Megan. I live here in Anacortes. I've been here for 3 years. I'm the community lead for the Elizabeth Warren campaign 2020 here in town. Co-leading with Teresa Baker back there, and then Mike's a good volunteer for us too. He's been helping us out. We've had a few community events, one really big one here where we brought a bunch of people in to kind of educate them on her plans and what she stands for. I won't take this platform to do that right now. I'm sure you have heard or might know. But we have a lot of events coming up to include door knocking canvassing that we'd love to have you involved with if you feel inclined. We'll do that mostly on Saturdays midday. And we'll also be at the holiday market, outside of the market, at the Port of Anacortes, also engaging with voters as well. But a really exciting one, if you don't really know much about Senator Warren from Massachusetts and you want to learn more about what she stands for, I'm hosting a book club of sorts at my home. Tomorrow will be our first one. We'll be going over paying for Medicare for all as well as the ultra millionaire tax. So it's kind of designed like a book club, like you would join with any other member of your community to read through books, but we're going to read through her plans because they're long and they're involved and they are very well thought out. So we're going to read them like they're books. And we're going to talk about them like you would in a community in that way. So if you're interested in any of those things or finding out more about the events that we're going to host as a Warren community to get out the vote and to really project what she stands for, I have a sign-up sheet, and I will be here all the way to the end of the meeting, and I will meet with anybody that wants to talk and get your contact information. If you can't tell, I'm extremely fired up about her, and I want her to be my next president, and I really want you guys to join me in that fight. Additionally to working here at the community level, I'm also an engagement lead online for her call crew. So there's lots of other ways to get involved. You don't have to be that gregarious door knocking type. You can call for her at home on your own, on your couch. You can send text messages for her. There are so many ways that you can get involved at this grassroots level, which is precisely what Anacortes voters, Fidalgo voters are good at. So I'll be here, so let me know. Thanks.
Okay, so we have 3 board members of Sound Defense Alliance. I'll just tell you a sentence about what Sound Defense Alliance is. It's a coalition of organizations from Skagit County, the San Juan Islands, Whidbey Island, Camino, the Olympic Peninsula, and Whatcom County too. And it's an opposition group to the Growler expansion. I'll introduce the speakers in the order in which they're going to speak. First is Mark Lunston. They're all on the board. Mark lives on South Fidalgo near Deception Pass, close to Alt Field. He was a commercial fisherman for 27 years and owner-operator in the Gulf of Alaska and the Bering Sea. Then he owned and operated a research and charter boat in Southeast Alaska about 10 years. And then he became a filmmaker. Now he's on the Skagit County Planning Commission, the board of Evergreen Islands, and he represents Evergreen Islands on the board of the Sound Defense Alliance. Mark. Please hold your questions and comments until after all 3 have spoken, if you don't mind.
Trip on anything up here?
Got it.
And you can take that out if you prefer.
This is fine, just so you can all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I have a loud voice anyway, I really don't need it.
Yeah, but
I've
they
been
do.
told that many times.
But many of the people do need it.
I will keep it on. I will not keep it on. Thank you for coming out tonight. My name is Mark Lunston. Corrine had it right. I am a member of the Evergreen Islands group, and in that capacity I serve with the Sound Defense Alliance, which is a coalition of regional groups with the same interest of reducing growler jet noise. Almost 2 years ago, I got an email, and it was a group email, and I hardly knew anybody in the CC. And it was about a proposal to allow the military to change county regulations to accommodate military bases in the comprehensive plan as necessary. Well, people in this area were the ones who got this email. I was one of them. I forwarded that on, and I got an email a few days later. It was actually Super Bowl Sunday. It was from the committee in Olympia that was working on this. They were working overtime on Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday, no less. And it said, we've tabled it. Forget it. We had flooded them spontaneously with about 1,000 emails in the course of a few days because of jet noise. It was people from around here who, in the few years previous to this, had experienced the growler. Not the prowler, the old one, but the growler. The one that shakes the ground, makes the water in your pond go rippling. It was a raw and sort of ragged message. It said, what the hell are you guys thinking? You better not. And they quit. A year later, we had formed a group called the Sound Defense Alliance. And a different thing happened. We went down to Olympia when this issue came up again. It was a variation on the same bill. And it got passed. But we helped write it. And we wrote it so that we could be included in it and have our needs met. And McCord, who had initiated the thing, had their needs met. And we discovered in that time the importance of being at the table. Because if you aren't, you're probably on the menu. And we had that fit, we was a success. We moved along. About 8 months later, 7 months later, I was at a different table with Marion and Rob Smith, another member of the board member of Sound Defense Alliance, represents the National Park Conservation Association, mostly in regard to Olympic Peninsula, in the office in Renton of Adam Smith, who's the chairman of the Armed Services Committee. We had been working with their staff to try to include real-time noise monitoring in the National Defense Authorization Act, which happens every year. We wanted to mandate that the Navy measure decibel levels, actual decibel levels, not computerized averaging. But when it's 120 decibels, which is just going to make you deaf, which the growlers can do, they will report that. And we were going to make them require that. As you may know, the environmental impact statement for the growlers says that the noise level of the growlers is negligible because they average this stuff out over a year's period of time, day and night, so that a few flights over at 100 and 120 decibels works out to be 50 or 60 max, well under the 60 decibel threshold over the course of a year. And they got away with it. So we thought we'd go right for that. So we were in the office, and Marion and Rob and I, and Rob had brought a bunch of friends with him for the Olympic Parks, and we had our legislative consultant, Teresa Purcell, was with us. We were ready to explain why this is important. So he sits down, and he starts telling us in very eloquent terms exactly what we were going to tell him. And he says, I think that's a good idea. But what are you going to do once we find out we verify how loud they are? How are we going to fix the problem? What are we going to do? He's asking us. Now, we had started out as a bit of an angry mob, but we were all over the area. I knew when it happened, that when we stopped that first plan for the military to have control over the counties, that we had a coalition. So once we started, we realized that we could actually start working this and asking for what we wanted. And once we were sitting in Adam Smith's office, we realized that we were on the way. We hadn't succeeded. The bill still hasn't passed. As you're well aware, there's a lot of other stuff going on in Washington, D.C. right now with another Adam. So that the National Defense Authorization Act, NDAA, is kind of slowed down. But when we got back, we were gratified. We were very pumped that we had been to Renton and talked to Adam Smith, and he was on our side. He was going to work with us. He wanted us to work with him. This is a big deal. So we asked our members to write letters, thank him, and thank the staff of Rick Larson and Maria Cantwell, who were working with the same issue, and Adam Smith. And I got a call a few days later from Glenn Carpenter, and he is the legislative aide for Adam Smith, who works in Renton, and he said, he's very young. All those legislative aides seem to look like they just got out of high school, but that's what happens as you get older, is you see things that way. But he says, and he's a really nice guy, really smart guy. And he says, Mark, I'm on your side, right? I said, yeah, and we really appreciate it, Glenn. Well, geez, my phone, you said I got 500 emails on Friday night, my phone died. And we had thanked him a little too much. The thing is that we still have that energy, but we've learned to discipline it. It's been difficult to do, but that's where we've come. We had started by just having an informal email chains and raising our voices, no, and now we're talking with chairmen of committees. We are on a first name basis with staff members. We're working at it. It's not easy. We're butting heads much of the time among ourselves. That's a lot of energy. Our stakes are high. We're talking about things that are our homes. We're protecting with the jet noise. The reason we have that passion, I think, is because we all see growler jet noise as a public health hazard. Nothing less. It's not an inconvenience. To say it's a NIMBY issue is an insult to being human. I ask anyone to stand below one of those things when they're 400 feet up and say that. It doesn't work that way. So we look forward to continuing this. We can't hardly believe that we've gotten as far as we have, not to mention the Bob Ferguson's lawsuit, which I'm not going to talk about. But we've gotten some help along the way. And I just wanted to show you a few things. And my timing couldn't have been better. Here it comes.
There's your screen.
Now you gotta hit the enlarge
Which one is that?
far right at the bottom. I mean, just,
Picture there.
no.
There we go. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Big feet.
We've gotten some help along the way. We've been lucky. We have had people who have been sympathetic to us. For example, Dave Horsey, last year, had this cartoon in the Seattle Times. And not that long ago, something else happened that I thought was really important. Joel Conway. Now, for any of you who live in Seattle, he's a very venerable and esteemed political reporter from the Seattle PI, which is no longer in print, but it's online. And he's a very well-regarded guy, and I've always liked reading him. Well, this came up, and included in the article is a quote from Dan Evans. And he says the judge shouldn't be, basically, Dan Evans, Republican, former governor, former senator, and the namesake of the wilderness areas in the Olympic National Park, or adjacent to it. And he said, the judge shouldn't be flying over that place. They should find other places to go. So to me, that was significant. We've tried, we have had a standard of being disciplined and staying on target and stop the jet noise because it's important. But we've also tried to have some standards about not trolling people. We get trolled a lot. We get called, radical, unpatriotic, ne'er-do-wells, NIMBYs, and so on, arrogant. And I've never seen any of us reciprocate in kind. And I think that's one thing that matters, is that we're working the system in good faith. We're not catcalling, we're not dragging people down. We've been doing work that I consider to be the real work of the system. And we're nonpartisan. We've never brought up whether it's Democrat or Republican. We want Jay Inslee's support, which we've gotten, and we want Dan Evans' endorsement, which we've gotten. So we hope to continue. We're not there yet, but we're going to get there. So I'll thank you very much. And
Okay, our next speaker is Marion Atwood. She spoke to the group in 2015, so if you were here, you might remember Marion. She lives in Coopville. She co-founded Citizens of EV's Reserve and the Sound Defense Alliance, co-chair of Sound Defense Alliance. She chairs the Alliance Legislative Committee. Marion is a retired nonprofit administrator. She assisted in establishing the organic program at Washington State University. She has established major state and regional environmental preservation programs and art education programs across the country. I'm not done yet. There's more. No, that's the contact information. That is all. Marion Atwood.
This goes forward.
This is the follow one?
That little one right there.
Okay.
Or you can just hit the arrows.
Oh, okay. Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here. We have a great group, and Did I go backwards?
There you go, you're there.
So I wanted to give you a little insight from Central Whidbey. Since we're a membership group, a coalition of groups from different areas throughout Puget Sound and the Salish Sea, a lot of the action has been in Central Whidbey because citizens of Eby's Reserve started there. We kind of were the canaries in the cave and started alerting people to what was going on here about over 8 years ago. So one of the things that we've learned in this battle is how to frame your issues. And so one of the things we've decided to do, we hear all this stuff about the Navy as good neighbors, right? And they have all these myths that they have created about our community. And so I just wanted to share a few of those with you. This is what they say. This is just a return to what the Navy's done in the past. All the complainers, all those newcomers who should have known better. You shouldn't have bought your house here. You should have been someplace, I don't know, Tennessee or someplace where they don't have jets. Well, here's the facts, folks. This is not a return to historical usage. This is a return to historical high levels. And you can look at the facts. So this is the increase that we're all complaining about right now. It's down here by Rhea. Rhea, you want to lift your finger up there? There it is. So the 42-year average is really only about 13,000. So when the Secretary of Navy says he's returning to historical averages, he left out a couple of words. So these are the facts, and this is how we should frame the issue, starting with the facts, not the myth. So here's another one. The Growler is not as loud as the Prowler was. The Navy has mitigated noise by taking the Prowler out of service. Well, that would do it, right? However, they've replaced it with the Growler, who was supposed to be quieter, as we hear it. And there were supposed to be fewer of them. They started off with 52, now we're going to have 118. So here's the facts. So the noise modeling shows that that is not true. Uh-oh, something has happened. Did I?
They used the same thing I did.
No, you clicked on the links.
Oh. I leaned on the podium?
No, I didn't click on your hand.
Oh, I leaned on the clicker.
It was the judge.
Oh, there we are. We're back to the noise. So, quite the contrary. The Growler is louder, and this is about intensity and sound level, and this vibration. It has a low level vibration that the Prowler never had, and that's what ripples the water when it flies over. It's what churns up the insides of your stomach when you're standing underneath it. It vibrates everything. Low-level noise like this travels further than regular high-intensity noise, and there's not really very much that stops it. And in fact, they have a hydrometer that's been off alt field, testing to see how far Growler noise penetrates into the water. Well, the first data that's coming in is at 100 feet down. So it is impacting the fish and the orcas. So we know that that kind of low-level sound is a problem. So this myth is, really out there. Okay, dispelling another myth. OLF is like landing on a carrier near the water, 60 feet higher than the rest of the land around it. They've also used, it's really dark. It's really dark out there. So it's like the carrier out at sea. Well, you can see by these Google Maps that this is not quite true. It's not sitting up on any big bluff. There's flat lands all around it. The biggest hazard really is all the trees. The trees keep growing. And it makes it challenging for some of their pathways when they're flying over these trees, and very hazardous for the pilots. And there you see a topographical map. It's completely flat on the approach and the path toward the ends of the OLF field. So these myths have been constructed to tell people things that they want people to frame in their minds. But you can say things a lot of times that aren't true, but we don't have to believe it because we have the facts. And these are more facts that have to do with the numbers of all the increases. And this is what our group has challenged. Sound Defense Alliance came together to challenge basically all of these numbers. 288% increase in operations at the outlying field. I mean, this is over the top. This is a bridge too far. This makes us all collateral damage. So some of the groups in Central Whidbey, both of these groups are board members on the Sound Defense Alliance. And this is one of our activities. We're out on the streets. And here's some of the activities that the Sound Defense Alliance has taken up, bringing our multiple groups together. Our first big action was the no new jets, no new flights. Again, we're creating a message that we all agreed to, which was no easy chore. And do you hear us? And we had almost 500 people doing this card stunt out in the field one day. And it was our kickoff to tell the world that we had arrived, and we were going to challenge that chart that you saw that had the huge expansion, which the Navy had decided to try to implement on top of us. And the plain truce, we do the movies all around. We've shown that movie around. We created that movie. We tried to have sort of a neutral feeling on the movie. The Navy did get to have appearances in the movie and had discussion in the movie. We've had postcard parties. We've had all kinds of forums, educational forums. There's one coming up in Ria's part of the world, which she'll probably mention to you. And then the thing that my group is in charge of is the litigation arm of what SDA has been involved with. Our group is being the point people on the litigation. And so, along with the Attorney General, Citizens of EV's Reserve did sue the Navy with a NEPA challenge. We've also have an environmental challenge with the marbled murrelet. And we haven't decided yet whether or not we're going to try a preliminary injunction to stop the jets from flying. We're still engaged in trying to make that decision. But these lawsuits probably will not, our suits have been combined. Corps' suit has been combined with the AG's suit. That will probably, as far as the timeline goes, begin next year. January 3rd is the beginning of some of that action, so by March we may be in court. There's other litigation that's happening from other groups. The National Conservation Parks Association did a lawsuit on FOIAs. The Navy wasn't giving them the information they needed to make comments on the supplemental report for the training and testing center off our coast. And so they had to sue the Navy to get the information they needed to make comments on the report. And so they did that. We have 2 class action suits going on, one about water and the fire foam that's contaminated the water supply. There's that group, and then there's also a class action group that's formed over the noise and the taking under the Third Amendment of their property and use of their property. So there's a number of lawsuits. There may be more. But there are things happening litigation-wise, and you can follow those on the Citizens of EB's Reserve website. We're trying to carry all the litigation news on our website because SDA is our legislative arm. So that's some of the things we're doing, and I just wanted to end by saying, noise is never just about sound. It is inseparable from issues of power and powerlessness. It is a violation we can't control and to which, because of our anatomy, we cannot close ourselves off to. So it's a righteous cause, and my mother always told me that, you know, nobody is going to do what you need to do for yourself. If something isn't right, you have to stand in the line and you've got to fix it. So here I am after these years, and I guess I'm here till the bitter end. So thank you all for being here and being interested in this issue. People are watching us around the country, and let me tell you that Attorney General lawsuit was a big deal. The Navy never expected that. So knew that the Corps was going to sue it, but the Attorney General and the people of Washington suing the Navy, that was a surprise. And other states are watching us, and they're watching our little bill in the U.S. Congress on the National Defense Authorization Act. And I noticed it wasn't one of the things that you all were supporting in your newsletter. So you might want to write a letter to Adam Smith, and we can help you do that.
Sorry, it wasn't in the newsletter. I didn't know.
Over here.
Yeah. Now our third speaker is Rhea Miller, who lives on Lopez Island, where she and her partner have a straw bale house with wastewater garden and rainwater catchment. Thought you'd like to know about that. She's chair of the Sound Defense Alliance. Rhea has served over 10 years as a San Juan County Commissioner with emphasis on environmental protection and sustainability. She serves as the community liaison for the Lopez Community Land Trust. She serves on the boards of the Lopez Chamber of Commerce, the Solid Waste Disposal District, and she was on the San Juan Islands National Monument Advisory Committee for 5 years. She's been featured as a TED speaker, and she's the author of a book called Cloud Hand, Clenched Fist, Chaos, Crisis, and the Emergence of Community. Rhea Miller.
Thank you. So I've been living on Lopez for 34 years, and I love my home. I love it dearly. And one of the places I love is the San Juan Islands National Monument. It's spectacular, as you can imagine. You know these kind of places. I love going there. But it's on the south end of Lopez, and it looks directly over at the Navy's, to the Naval Air Station Whidbey Island. And the noise is just so unbelievably egregious. I was visiting some friends at a little meeting. The guy has a music studio in his home. He's quite a renowned musician. And we'd been meeting in this house, and it was 9:30 at night, pitch dark, within a quarter mile of the National Monument. And I went outside and started walking to my car, and these guys flew over. And it was just totally spontaneous. I had to do this. Because I thought my eardrums were going to break. And I was like, who in their right minds thinks there's anything humane about this? So a group of us got together and formed Quiet Skies over San Juan County. And you know, I've met with 4 commanders at the Naval Air Station over the years that I've been involved. And the Navy just flat out lies. I'm just telling you, they flat out lie to you. And I would tell them, you know, the Growlers are flying over the school. Oh, no, they don't. No, they don't do it. They're flying over Lopez Village. Oh, no, that doesn't happen. But if you have any concerns, you do our report line. And here's our report line. And it goes into this vacuous, deep, black hole. So our local county commissioners, they had an idea. They said, let's have our own report line. And so this is what they did. And they form a report line, and every one of those red dots is where somebody gets called in and reported on the internet that the growlers have gone over. They tell you how bad the noise is, any comments that you want, and they report it. And then we collate a report that we send to the legislators. We have that report here. It shows you the map. It also tells you every single comment that somebody has made about the growlers as they fly over. And we do this every so many months. And this is a regional area of reports that are starting to come in. So we're starting to get things on our local map that come from other areas of the state. So when you're talking about noise, you know, I love this graph because it gives you some idea of the impact of decibels. And you notice they say things like hearing damage in 30 minutes at 97. This is like sitting next to an electric drill or sitting next to a hairdryer. So I just want to give you an idea of what is happening to people in their homes with their ear protection on. You can see here, whoa. Yeah, I got excited here. Okay. 95 decibels, 89.8 decibels, 94.3, 92. These were taken inside somebody's home, for God's sake. And she does wear ear protection. You can see it again here. Oh.
I'm glad it happened to you too.
Yeah.
Yeah, 3 for 3.
It's a little tight, very sensitive cord.
Consistent punch. You got to fix that.
Oh. Okay, so I just wanted you to see that the National Monument is there as well. Right down here, 90 plus. So when we're going to something that's now a national attraction, and one of the main tourist places drawing people to this part of the country, we're flying over with jets in 90 decibels. So this is what one woman thinks around her home, representing about 75% of the noise, 65 to 75 decibels. You can see 20% at 85 plus. 85 plus decibels is maybe 5%. But one of the worst things is this vibration. Because every time that vibration happens, everybody on Lopez that's hearing it at that particular time, their adrenaline just spikes. Because you ask yourself, God, is there a fire in my chimney? Is it a tornado for those who were raised in tornado country? What's going on? People have their things vibrated off shelves in their homes from this vibration. And the funny thing is, when you're on the base at NAS Whitby, you don't get this because it comes over the water and just gets amplified as it heads toward the islands. So at 65 to 75 decibels, it's like sitting in a room with the vacuum running. But it's not happening for 30 seconds or 30 minutes. This is happening sometimes, where was that? 6 to 10 hours of sitting in a room with the vacuum cleaner running fully. That time it was at 9:30 at night. We have young families with young children, and you know, they're not sleeping through that. And last night I got a call from Waldron Island, not ferry served, no grid on the island, but the guy calls me, says, you know what, I was over in Coopville, and we were waiting for the ferry to go to Port Townsend, and it was late. And all of a sudden the growlers started their touch and go. And he said, at first I was angry. And then he said, God, can I get away from this while I'm waiting for the ferry? And then he said, this is what I heard among the kids in the ferry line. Mommy, stop that, my head hurts. The sound, it's making my head hurt. One little boy turned to his mom and said, are we at war? I'll get it again. There we go. besides the sound, of course, there's the fact that their afterburners are what makes it really large. They deny that they're doing fuel dumping, but we do have fuel dumping. If you're concerned about climate change, you can see here that 25 tons per hour for 2 growlers, whereas it's 28 tons per day for everything to run Lopez Island, including all the cars. And then, of course, there's the Olympic National Park. And the Olympic National Park is the place that a lot of our veterans go to who suffer from PTSD. They find that it's a very healing place. It supposedly has the quietest square inch in the country. And so this is what they're doing to Olympic National Park. 100 Growler fighter jets, 16 hours a day, 260 days a year. Yesterday was Veterans Day, and this tribute was written by a local man on Lopez, where he speaks about, here we have these returning veterans suffering from PTSD, and they come to a place that normally has been a place of healing, and now they're experiencing war all over again on our own populace in peacetime. So we have banded together with Quiet Skies, National Parks Conservation Association, Fidalgo, Corps, Central Whitby, and anyone else we can grab a hold of to get the attention of this country that we are being destroyed here as a place of beauty, as a place of peace and tranquility, which is actually the basis of San Juan County's economy per our comprehensive plan. We're asking simply that they restore the balance to where we can all live here together. Thank you. I also have cards with the Sound Defense Alliance website on it if you want it, and also Quiet Skies with the reporting that San Juan County uses, reporting site.
Okay, this is not, I don't think. Oh, yes it is. So we'll have questions, and also, is this really on? Okay, and also you can make comments too, it doesn't have to be a question. Say who if it's a question, say which one it's for, and if you don't know if it's for any of them, say that. Please state your name so we can get to know you. There's some new people here. What else do I want to say? I'll bring the one of us will bring the microphone to you. We really need the microphones in the audience, or we could have the speakers repeat the question. We said we would do that, but Wim and I decided, as long as we have a microphone, let's use it. So we'll bring it to you. And raise your hand and I'll call on you in order. I'll try to keep the order. And if you stand, that helps everybody to hear you too. And hold the microphone really close to your mouth. You have to otherwise.
I'm Pat Gardner. I'm in Oak Harbor, and I live in Scenic Heights, and I get a lot of the noise going from Altfield to Coopville and back and forth. A while back, there was discussion of flights at McCord, moving some of them towards McCord. That's a question. I'll leave it at that. But I do have a statement I'd like to make. I met with Rick Larson when he was in Burlington at a coffee thing a while back. And as you had mentioned, the growlers do vibrate, right? There's a lot of granite around here. I've been at Deception Pass by Bowman Bay, up on a point when they've been flying, and I can feel it vibrating. Now, what is happening around the bridge?
Yes.
And I mentioned that to Rick Larson, and his eyebrows kind of raised.
Yeah.
And I haven't heard any more comments about that. I know they're working, they're maintaining it, and I'm not getting, we're trying the best to take care of it. But that can tell you something. And also the rocks that are on, before and after the bridge. You see them coming down, not just because of the rains and things like that, but the vibrations can loosen them and they could come down with the rains. But I wanted to bring those two things up.
What was that first question?
The first question was, a while back, there was at one of the meetings, they talked about McCord.
And who are you asking?
Whoever wants to answer.
Whoever.
I was just asking Marion if she knew anything. It's speculation, but as far as we know.
I just want to add, one of the things that Representative Smith did say to us when we spoke to him was that there really does need to be an evaluation, a study done. If Congress has to do it, then they have to do it, but he'd like the Navy to do it. To have a real study on alternative siting of the growlers. There's never been one. So that is something that he looked at, whether he could attach that to the NDAA bill, but they couldn't. So that's something for the future. It's on his mind. And so we need to, put a pin in that and stay with that.
When I mentioned that Congressman Smith had asked us, so then what do we do to fix the problem? And right now, we have a document that they're looking at, and that would include possible ways to have the growlers move somewhere or whatever it might be. And that's in discussion, and they will be the ones who flesh that out. But the point I wanted to make is just that it's in the conversation, and we were not there at all two years ago. Everybody was, you don't have a chance. And now suddenly, we do.
Because of Adam Smith, right?
Well, I would Maria Cantwell and Rick Larson have been, Rick Larson's on the committee, and Maria Cantwell is on the Senate committee. And they've been essential. Their support of this has been essential as part of it. I think, as I understand it, Adam Smith has worked, wanting to make sure that it's okay with his cohort in the area. I mean, he's very independent. He's the chairman, but I think he has been in communication. I think we all have our own.
Well, I just was with Maria Cantwell on the south end of Lopez as she looked out across at NES Woodby, and she found it quite shocking. So she's been a big player as well.
So we should thank all three of them.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Okay, who's next? Teresa.
You're looking like, no, I wasn't next. I'm Jan.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm Jan.
That's why you're looking like that.
And my question to any of you is, what is the goal? In other words, are we asking them to shut down the Naval Air Station, or?
No, we've specifically said that we're not asking NES Woodby to shut down, but the long-term goal, we would love to see those growlers just plain go. Definitely, we do not want the additional growlers that are flying now. We also want noise mitigation. If they can't do noise mitigation, it seems to me they need to go.
So what would they do there? I mean, they're never going to go back to...
Well, we have a roadmap to restore the balance, and that's what we turned into Adam Smith. And once he responds to that, and we've been able to meet with the rest of our congressional delegation, y'all are going to get that.
Is that on your website, or?
Not yet.
Not yet.
You will be.
A roadmap is like, how are we going to get to where we're going? It's like, so we've agreed as a group. We've had actually several years of discussion prior to SDA's involvement, and now SDA has created this document. We've responded to Adam Smith's questions about what is it that we want. And so we have this concise list of things that we want in a priority order. And we want to get his response to it, but this is an answer to his question about, well, how do we solve the problem? And the problem being the growlers.
Yeah, hi. My name is John Morgan. I have a question. Mark, I've spoken to you before or emailed you about the list of people, elected officials and otherwise, that would be good to contact by email, telephone. Do you have a paper copy of those lists, or should they go to your website?
Website.
Yeah, the website should have everything, who to contact,
Right.
who to call. And I would emphasize, in Anacortes, we've had enormous success with some of the state legislators. Dave Paul in the 10th and Liz Lovelet in the 40th stepped right up and wrote letters of support. They asked pertinent questions, got right to it, and then they wrote letters to Patty Murray, Maria Cantwell, Rick Larson, Adam Smith, and Derek Kilmer. We requested they do that.
Yeah.
And Liz didn't hesitate, Dave Paul didn't hesitate. And so I would contact everybody else. I mean, and thank them and continue to contact them. But Deborah Lekanoff could use a nudge.
Yeah, I contacted all those people on the list that you sent me.
Yeah, Jeff Moore, and our city council and our mayor could certainly use a nudge. And the Board of Commissioners for Skagit County. Then all that stuff's good public information, let them have it. That's their job. They need to listen to us about stuff like this.
Sound Defense Alliance, is it .org or .com?
It's right here.
.org.
.org, okay. I'll grab it.
Please take a card.
Grab a business card, folks. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Marlene Finley. My question is, what's the future of the Growlers? I've heard that technology is going to be obsolete very soon.
This is all in the realm of speculation, but actually the aircraft carrier is on the demise, and that's what the Growler is meant for, is to land and take off. And at least that's what they're trying to do here at OLF. And also there's this thing called a drone that can do a lot of the electromagnetic warfare training type of work. But again, there are industries that make a lot of money, and planes are already in the pipeline, so one doesn't know when that will change.
Who's next?
Yeah.
And then,
Thank you very much for all this information. Unbelievable, Anacortes. I'm just curious, as a technical question, is it possible to have a win-win, some sort of, the country is at peace right now. There is no imminent threat. And why do these pilots have to continuously fly up and down?
can you hold it a little closer? We can't hear
But
you.
yeah, every day almost. Is it possible to convince them and say, well, look, reduce these flights by 50, 60, 70%, save a ton of money, a ton of noise, environmental control, and all that? Is that an option in the meantime?
So part of the problem is that we are not at peace. The United States of America has 800 bases around the world. We're engaged in all kinds of warfare activities around the world. And the ongoing mission against terrorism is creating trouble at home. And it's creating trouble with the Growler over all of us, because they have to do all of these operations and all this training for this ongoing warfare. The military budgets just keep going up. Right before 9/11 happened, there was a lot of talk about reducing military budgets, and that all went out the window. And it's been a long time before people have started talking about peace again and having a peace economy. We haven't done that in a long time. But we aren't going to get rid of machines like this or the F-35, which is invading towns like Burlington, some of America's favorite towns, Burlington, Vermont, Madison, Wisconsin, Boise, Idaho. They're bringing these war machines into our communities where there's tons of people and commerce and business to do their warfare missions. And they want them very realistic. This is the new thing. They want to practice over real people, over real buildings, and yet they have all their practice cities out in the desert and stuff. But they've changed their tactics and their strategies about their training. And we have to be way more vocal about building from the top down and the bottom up, about changing who we elect to office and who is speaking for us, and where, there's only so many dollars. Where are we going to put them?
Well, I'm just going to say the war is going to be won through cybersecurity anyway.
I think one of the things that we've faced is that we have some people who are conscientious objectors. We have people who've been decorated war veterans in SDA. We have all kinds. And I don't think any of them are people who would say that they wanted to increase military spending. But what we've agreed on is to keep a simple target, decrease jet noise. That's the first step. And to do that in a conscionable, accountable way that makes the system, we can replicate that with another effort. I mean, that's the whole idea of a democratic process, is you do it again. You do the same thing again, even if it's different people. And so we're really, it's hard because it's emotional. It's hard to follow a program that's sort of rational and systematic when you're pissed off. So a lot of us would just like to say, screw the military, cut the budget. What the hell? But that won't get us anywhere. And so we're really trying to focus on jet noise is public health. It's a public health hazard. It's unethical and unsustainable, and we need to stop it. And the citizens want it, and we're working at it. So for me, it's a matter of keeping our political aim on target.
Good point.
Hi, my name is Patty Vodopest. I live in Anacortes. I've lived here about a year and a half. Before that, I lived in a little town called Elk Grove Village in Illinois, which happened to be right under the flight path of O'Hare. So when the wind was blowing from the east, we'd get flights directly over the house, 900 feet over the house. Every minute and a half, there'd be a jet going over. And it's very loud. But I find even the noise that we're experiencing today in Anacortes, it started at 11 a.m., it's still going on, more distressing. It gets on my nerves, I'm anxious, I'm shaking. And it's certainly not as loud as those airplanes in Chicago. That was deafening. You couldn't watch the TV, you'd have to put on the closed captioning, that kind of thing. So the noise in Anacortes isn't as bad, it's just that vibration or something. It just goes to my core. I can't go outside and walk my dog. I just feel like I'm gonna go nuts if this continues. I don't know, I'll have to move or something, but a whole day of this racket is just too much for me. And I don't know if other people experience that deep down in the core anxiety, whatever that I'm experiencing, but it's not just an annoyance. It's all encompassing is what it is. Thank you.
What neighborhood are you in?
I live by Storvik Park, so it's pretty much close to the commercial area, by the hospital, and by the middle school and the high school.
Now Rick is next, John.
Well, you're standing up. Go ahead.
No, you had your hand up before.
Hi, my name is Rick Shorten, and I live under the flight path along the Skagit River, southeast of LaConner. And I've been dealing with Rick Larson for many years, back when he would give the excuse, I'm strong on national security, as his support for all this. Now, I'm really glad to hear that he's sort of coming around, and I hope he's sincere in that. But I want to remind you that the Growlers are made by Boeing.
Yeah.
And Rick Larson is known as the congressman from Boeing.
Yes.
I mean, he gets a lot of money from Boeing. So, follow the money. And so don't let up on Rick Larson. If he's coming around, keep the pressure on, write him letters, send him emails, because this is his district with the Island Naval Air Station. He's their congressman, he's our congressman, so, next.
My name's John Morgan. I live here in Anacortes. I also live near Storvik Park, 27th Court and M Street. Jets coming virtually right over my apartment building. So the reason why these jets have these loud engines is because they're carrying a heavy amount of ordnance. And they're a lot heavier than the Prowlers, the equipment that the Prowlers were carrying. So the engines are louder because they're more powerful. And of course the Navy's not going to tell you that. They're just going to, sugarcoat everything. And I don't know if you've noticed, but since Trump became president, has the frequency of the jets flying over, has it increased? Because it seems like he increased the military budget virtually the day he took office. I don't think it's a coincidence that, the Republicans in the Congress and the new so-called president is allowing the military to do whatever they want. That's what it seems like to me. So we need to get out and vote, folks. Please make sure your voter registration is up to date. And we need to vote for the right people so we can change our government. Thank you very much.
Elizabeth Warren events available, sign up with me.
You want to pass it around?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, do that. There was a question in there. Who do you want to answer it?
Well, I guess I know Mark. But just in general, would you all agree that the frequency of the Growlers, the flights going over Anacortes has increased since Trump took office?
I think it's ironic that the funding for NAS Whitby was in danger because of the building of the wall. So some of the money was to come away. But I would say overall there is a general permissiveness for cruel behavior.
I would say that.
Who's next?
I was going to say, in addition to that, I think there's just a permissiveness for or an accepting of just bullying and lying to the public. That's just that we cannot keep track of it anymore. So we don't think about it. People figure they can get away with it.
I'll add one last thing. The record of decision was made by the Secretary of Navy in March, and they started incrementally increasing their number of operations after that March 15th date. So, I agree with what both Mark and Rhea had to say, but also the increase started happening since March. And that is why we're hearing so many more operations.
One of the early goals of the SDA was to get to the Secretary of Navy because the local commander has no power over any true decision-making, but the Secretary of Navy does. And the Bob Ferguson lawsuit brought him to the table.
So, Jan Marcus again.
Can you stay on, please, Jan?
No.
Oh, all right.
So, on a personal level, I get really annoyed when I read comments in the newspaper objecting to the noise of the Growlers, and the replies are all about the sound of freedom and you should shut up and go away. And I just wonder if you or anybody here has some way to diffuse that in person, or I don't know what's a good response to that, because it is really easy to get pissed off.
There's a real quick response now. They took that sign down. You do not see that sign in front of the NAS Whitby anymore. So if the Navy isn't putting it out there to the public, there's something going on.
But I mean, it's still in the discourse.
It may be in the discourse, you just need to point that out. Excuse me, but your Navy took that sign down.
I didn't even know there was a sign.
There was.
Comment on that. Excuse me, I'm Marshall Goldberg from Oak Harbor. The sign you're talking about was at Altfield Road in 20. Well, they took that sign down and replaced it with 2 prowlers. For those of you who haven't traveled there, I'm not sure that was a fair trade. We have to look at prowlers now. That's what you're going to do with the growlers. We'll have a growler.
They actually put them on the ground there?
Yes, there are prowlers there where used to be a sign. I want to make a couple comments, if I may.
Sure.
First of all, for those of you who don't know this group, the SDA, I've been privileged to be a part of their activities. They're all well done, well planned. I'm not surprised about the progress that they're making. So it's worth your while to support them in some fashion. I dare say that those of us who are here, how many people here have not heard growlers? I'm just curious. This is a very biased.
They've gone over here.
This is a biased audience. Okay, so that being said,
Everyone's here, you know.
yes. Well, forget about tonight. Let's say if you weren't here tonight, would you hear them? Normally, you do, don't you? I live overlooking Douala Bay. Maybe I'm your neighbor, Mark. I'm not sure. I live in Sunrise Hill subdivision. I get to listen and look at growlers as long as they're flying. But the noise is annoying, et cetera, et cetera. That's why we should support it. If you have not done anything at all to support what SDA is doing, now's the time to do something, because the question's being asked. Would you be willing, this is a question we always need to ask, would you be willing to step up and go out of your way to help somebody you don't know? It has to do with championing causes that don't directly affect you. And maybe I don't have them landing on top of my house yet, but I do know I've been to OLF and the people there are suffering. This is suffering. This is not just rhetoric. This is pure suffering. These people are suffering, and that's what we have to do. We have to stand up for those people. The last thing I want to say is I like the statistics. The one that I can't put my finger on is every time that plane flies, an operation, what does it cost? Because when you talk to the other side, you know, somebody's paying for it. And the answer to the sound of freedom is, how much does it cost? Okay, when one flight goes over, what is it, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000? Does anybody have that number? I didn't see it on your slide, Maria, but it does. There's a cost attached to it, and we need to have that number, because when someone says that's the sound of freedom, well, what about the cost? Is it worth $30,000?
Just the fuel
Yeah,
cost.
the fuel cost.
Alone is phenomenal.
I know, but that was. I'd like to see that fuel cost and the other costs. I'd like to have that number. Maybe we would all like to have that number at some point, because we can talk that number. Money talks to people who on the other side who don't mind spending your money. Well, let's say we need to convince them it's also their money too. So, thank you.
Excellent.
I think each growler costs about $75 or $80 million.
The growlers themselves.
Each, just the plane itself, delivered. I don't even know if it's delivered. Comes off the assembly line at Boeing, $80 million per plane.
Rick has another comment.
So, one other comment. As I said, I live under the flight path where they approach along the Skagit River, over the Skagit River. And I've lived there for almost 23 years. And for years, for a couple decades, they were always flying singly. Now they're flying over 2 at a time, 3 at a time, sometimes 4 at a time. They don't land on aircraft carriers out in the ocean except 1 at a time. So they don't fly in combat in formations. This is just having fun.
Yeah, it's a macho angels thing.
I flew in the airport. They're just having fun. And it is fun, but it's not necessary. And it accentuates the noise by double or triple. When you have 3 planes flying over and put on their afterburners.
Yeah.
It's loud.
you, Rick. I'm glad you came tonight. Have all this to say. Anybody else? Are we running out of questions, comments?
Thank you.
Oh, wait, Kathleen has it. We always end with, let's thank our speakers, and you just did. You guys are great.
Yes.
Yeah. Next meeting is going to be not on the second Tuesday, which is our normal, which is tonight, but on the first Tuesday of December, because we can't always get this room, even though we schedule it exactly on time.
It's not picking you up.
It's not picking me up.
That's better.
There you go.
So our next meeting is going to be on Tuesday, December 3rd, in 3 weeks. And the topic will be the Alliance for Gun Responsibility. I don't have a title yet, but they will talk about what has been accomplished so far for their group and what needs to be done, plans for the next legislative session. So that's going to be a really hot topic. So I hope you all come back. We have a lot of new people. We hope you will become regulars.
If you park in the front lot,